Hello, my name is Audrey Harper from BPD In today's video, we're going to talk about saying no to someone with borderline personality disorder. Now, I know this topic can be a little controversial. I've posted about this on social media, and it's gotten really good feedback as well as some really bad feedback. People with BPD, I guess, sometimes, having their triggers kind of called out can be a little bit triggering. So I do promise to talk about this with the utmost respect and validation for those with BPD. As someone in remission, I understand firsthand how hard it can be. But, saying no to someone with borderline personality disorder can be very tricky. Enforcing boundaries can result in unpredictable reactions or, quote, BPD episodes. If you love someone with BPD, you may regularly walk on eggshells. You might not know when you'll see their rage or feel the effects of their abandonment fears. So it can be a little emotionally exhausting. So I think the first step to being able to communicate a no to someone with BPD is understanding BPD and why episodes happen to begin with. So if you don't have the condition yourself, it can be hard to understand why your loved one with BPD has these explosive reactions. These reactions can be triggered by when you go out without them, or when you say no, or in any other way assert your own boundaries. So it could be to a plan that they're asking you to do, or an idea, or even a request. You might believe that they're being dramatic, overzealous, or maybe they're just too sensitive. Maybe you worry that they're being manipulative or controlling or abusive. In reality, it's more likely their fear of abandonment and rejection has just been triggered. So when someone with BPD gets triggered, it can set off an overwhelming wave of negative emotions like shame or sadness, fear. These feelings are intense and they can be incredibly hard to shake off. Typically, when someone with BPD experiences these feelings, they will make the frantic efforts to avoid the real or perceived abandonment or rejection. Either that, or they will protect themselves from further emotional pain by pushing away or pushing your buttons. It's really just a self-sabotaging defense mechanism. That's the whole "I hate you, don't leave me" stereotype, coming into play. So what are some triggers for BPD? Well, a person with BPD's fear of abandonment or rejection can be triggered by things like an unexpected delayed response to a text, not getting a text back at all, canceled plans, being left out of a conversation or event, a backhanded comment, their partner going out without them, having their ideas or requests rejected, offering help or support but being told no can be another one, being told no when asking for help, or even just being reminded of a past trigger or situation that triggered them. A lot of the times it's small things that most people wouldn't bat an eye at. So what's a loved one to do? Are you supposed to bend over backwards to try and appease them? Are you never supposed to say no? No, of course not. It's healthy to have boundaries in your relationships, and your loved one with BPD may not like them, but they do need to learn how to accept your boundaries if they want to have a healthy relationship with you. So instead of walking on eggshells, you want to learn how to validate their feelings. Now, just a note here that validation is not blind agreement. And you want to learn how to say no in a way that won't trigger their fears of abandonment and rejection. So keep in mind that doing this is a lot easier when your loved one is on board with strengthening and or fixing themselves and your relationship. So they're on board with treatment, they're already in treatment. It's a lot easier to do that. If they're not at that place, or if they're in denial about their condition or their traits, you can still do these tips, but they'll be a lot more likely to be successful if your loved one is actively treating their BPD. So let's see here. So saying no to someone with BPD. So here are some tips you can use to say no. And of course, just forward here that my advice is based on my own experience. It may not work for everyone, and I'm not a mental health professional. Okay, so the first step is clarify if it's a hard no, like a never happening, or a not now, will happen in the future. The word maybe, at least for me, and I know other people feel this way too, the word maybe can be frustrating and anxiety inducing. So try not to use it with people with BPD. Be direct whenever possible. Of course, when it's possible. Number 2, give your side of the story. Now, this can help lessen our feelings of abandonment or rejection. It can help us talk ourselves out of overthinking the situation or from taking it personally. So preventing both can ultimately help us focus on respecting your wants and needs, which are just as important. So for instance, if you're saying no because of your own anxiety over a certain activity that your partner with BPD is asking you to do, be open about those feelings and your anxiety so your loved one with BPD can better see things through your eyes instead of getting stuck in their own intense emotions. So tip number 3, if your no is actually not now, suggest a few alternate days or times. This helps your loved one remember that they still matter, and it shows that you care about them just as much as they care about you. It also lessens the blow of disappointment and gives them something to look forward to. So tip number 4, if your no is a hard no and it's never happening, try to come up with an alternative plan, idea, or compromise. But only do that if it's possible, realistic, and if you want to. Don't ever do something just because you feel forced to do it. That will only hurt both of you in the end. Tip number 5, if they seem to be getting upset or are becoming passive aggressive, ask your loved one how they're feeling. Expressing this can help your loved one let off steam. It can also help you come up with a better alternative together that would work for both of you. A good rule of thumb when it comes to communicating with people who have BPD is to focus on their feelings, not necessarily their words or actions. Focus on their feelings because that is what they will naturally be focused on, the intensity of the borderline amplified feelings. Trust me on that. Tip number 6, reassure your loved one that your reason for saying no has nothing to do with them as a person, and it doesn't change anything about your relationship or your love for them. Okay, even if you already told them your reason for saying no, sometimes it's not enough to just know the why, especially if you guys have been fighting over you saying no. So reassuring your loved one of your love can also help them better manage their BPD-influenced emotions and thoughts. Now, again, it's on them to manage the intense emotions. These tips are not meant for you to manage them for them. It's just for you to be supportive, validating, and to just let them express, things in a healthy way, as long as they're not name calling or degrading you or, throwing verbal abuse your way. All right, so tip number 7, remind your loved one of how much you love them. So this goes hand in hand with tip number 6. Both tips said together can actually make a huge difference. It seems really small, and maybe it doesn't work as well if you've been trying this with your partner who hasn't gone into any treatment. Like I said, these tips will work better if your partner is on board or treating their BPD. So tip number 8, be in the habit of sticking with the plan or with things you say you'll do. So try not to cancel, try not to push the time back or not follow through, as that can cause someone with BPD a lot of anxiety. It can really trigger us. So if canceling or pushing back the time is a must, because of course life happens, following the previous steps again could be helpful, along with giving your loved one as much notice as possible. Now, sometimes things happen and you just can't follow through on a promise. That's where your loved one with BPD will need to use their own coping skills that they've learned in treatment to kind of manage through that and radically accept it. That's not something you can do for them, though. So number 9, above all else, be patient and consistent. So it might seem like a lot of work to follow these steps just to assert a boundary or say no. And it is. I'm not going to deny that. So it's really not easy for loved ones of people who have BPD. It's a struggle for both partners. BPD really does put a damper on things, but with lots of patience, consistency, time, and professional help, I do believe there's hope for people who have BPD and their relationships. I do believe that. Having a boundary consistently asserted also helps a lot. That's from personal experience. If I know what to expect from someone, it helps me kind of put my emotions in check and, observe my own behavior. And over time, it does decrease the intensity of the trigger. And at times, having a boundary consistently asserted eliminated the trigger altogether. This took years of practice. Also, do as much research on BPD as you can. Take a DBT skills class for couples or join a support group for loved ones. I have links to both of those types of things and resources on my resources page. So go to bpdbeautiful.com/resources to check that out. Have a great one. Bye, guys.